I hit the right button, Cap. Can you believe it?
Look at you on this Friday morning on top of things.
Oh man, don't see now you're pressing it. You're pressing the idea of me actually hitting all of the right buttons 100% of the time. That expectation level, man, you're kind of sitting there and it's like it's making me feel good, but that adds to the pressure of like, okay, what's my sequence? How am I going to sit there and make this thing happen? By the way, that's Michael Parkhurst. If you haven't recognized him, it's time to catch up with Parky with Beyond Goals. So Cap, you're doing the 2 weeks in a row. So that means that Greg's doing 2 weeks in a row. Is that how this is going to work?
Who knows? We just take it week by week, John. We like to keep you on your toes, guessing everything.
No doubt. My first question for you is it was something that kind of came up as I was thinking this morning, which can be dangerous. When a mentor needs advice or mentoring, when you feel like you do, where do you go when you think you need mentoring? Because I would imagine that it's not just something that stops once play stops and you continue doing other things with your career. When a mentor needs mentoring, where do they go?
Yeah, and I think that, well, it's a good question. And I think that all of us who have had some success throughout their careers have probably had a mentor one way or another, or someone to, lean on or ask questions or just talk to, and I certainly have that as well. And, I think that one of the really nice things about being in this with Greg is I think him and I kind of help each other out on certain things, when we're dealing with certain situations or, struggling to connect with someone or whatever it might be. I think that it's nice that him and I have an ear to bounce things off of and somebody to talk to. The coach at Wake Forest University has always been someone that I've had a really good relationship there with. And he's somebody that I've leaned on throughout times in my career for advice, just to talk to. And so he's been somebody that has been a mentor for me.
I was going to ask you, when you're in one of those situations, how many people are on your speed dial that will pick up instantly knowing that it's you and that you've got to talk about something? How many folks are in that speed dial for you?
There's a few. I mean, surely my wife, Coach Muse there, Greg, there's a couple other family and friends, but those would be my top three.
And obviously, having those folks to lean on, I would think that it's just as important to have folks who can come at you from different perspectives, and they're not saying the same. You're not getting the same information over and over and over again. The fact that they might be able to come at you with an angle that you might not have thought of. You go to the next person, they bring something else to the table, and that third person brings something else to the table. You're not getting the same information over and over again, and getting all of those different sources can be just as helpful.
Oh, definitely. Because one of the things we talk about is it's all about perspective, and people see things differently, and that's a great thing. And it's nice to have those different perspectives sometimes when you're struggling with a decision or something going on in life, right? Where you're only seeing it one way, or, looking at it through one lens, right? People view things so differently sometimes. So to have that is important. I think that's, for me, where my wife is nice to talk to, because even though we were together my whole career, she still, is not a soccer enthusiast where she knows the game back and front or anything like that. She, was an athlete herself a while ago, but, doesn't view it in that lens of, professional athlete or coach or anything like that. So it's a completely different perspective. And then I've got Greg, obviously, who went through everything that I went through as an athlete. And then, Bobby Muse there at Wake, who understands the game, was never, a high level player, but knows the game from the coaching perspective and what athletes go through. So it is nice to have those different perspectives for sure.
Who do you think is, I won't necessarily ask for names, but how many people do you think are that have you on their speed dial for advice when it comes to mentoring, you think?
Yeah, hopefully a few. That's why, Greg and I share our personal information with all the clients that we work with, but beyond the kids that I've worked with over the past couple of years, friends and relatives and family. So I think that I've always been one of those people that is kind of easier to talk to, and I've always been a better listener than communicator, anyways. Even though I try to improve on the latter. Hopefully, because that's a great feeling to know that you can help someone or be there for someone when they need it.
How long did it take you, and this is different, I guess, from person to person, but how long did it take you when it comes to wanting to be a mentor for others? Were you always a person that was out there and gregarious and offering of information, or were you waiting for someone to sit there and say, hey, Michael, I want to ask you something? Were you an outbound or were you an inbound before you started mentoring like this with Beyond Goals?
Yeah, definitely inbound. I think that even when I talk about leadership, I was not, a typical or even a leader. In the common sense, I was not a leader throughout my whole life. I was definitely more quiet. Like I said earlier, I listened more than I spoke. I didn't realize at the time I was leading by example through the things I did, on and off the field. But just in terms of in the locker room, being a leader and communicating and wearing an armband and being more outgoing, I was not. I think I learned a lot throughout being at different locker rooms and being around different leaders. But similarly to mentoring, it took me to pretty late in my career to be more assertive or outgoing in my, hey, people don't always feel comfortable asking or going to other people. So maybe if I, go out there and be proactive and ask rather than wait to be asked upon, I can be of more help. And it takes a little bit of confidence to do that, and also a tone where it's not like oh, I know more than you, but I'm here to help in that regard. And so that was a fine line for me to overcome, because I didn't want to be pushy. I didn't want to make it seem like I knew everything or more than the guy next to me, but also wanted to be available to anybody that needed it.
And that is a delicate balance, especially to younger players, because of generational differences and perceptions and things like that, where you could have a younger player sit there today, regardless of age and age difference. They could sit there and say, "Oh, great, here so and so's coming again to tell me how he's doing things." And I think it is a delicate balance, and you have to find a way to have that other individual that you're trying to help understand that that's all you're trying to do. You're not trying to, impose your way on this individual. It's like, I've been there, I've seen this. Here's my input on what I'm seeing with what you're doing. And I think it is a delicate balance, especially with generational differences these days.
Totally. And that's part of the reason why Greg and I started Beyond Goals, honestly, and where the thought came from. Because, when I look back, I think, did I do enough to help out that first generation of Atlanta homegrowns, right? Chris Goslin and Andrew Carlton and Lagos Kunga and Patrick. Did I do enough to help them off the field and guide them and try and, give them a little bit of a spark? Because obviously it didn't work out for any of those guys with Atlanta United. I think that we all tried to do a little bit because we could see the writing on the wall a little bit. But, if I'm being honest, I don't know. I didn't cross over that line and be more assertive. And I look back and think, could I have done more? I wish I had done more.
But at the same time, they also, anybody has to want to listen too at the same time. And it's a 50-50 street here. And I can sense in talking to you about this that it's a lesson for a mentor, I guess, is in, because mentors are always learning too. And going back to asking yourself if you were there to help out the originals working their way through. It's a learning lesson for folks that want to continue to mentor as well. Lessons are always going to be there for you, whether you're an athlete, whether you're playing, whether you're learning after you've retired. All of these things, it comes back to the overarching message that you're still learning no matter what stage of your life you're in, and learning is a good thing.
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. Always learning. And that's why I read more now than I ever used to, just trying to increase knowledge and get other perspectives like we talked about earlier. And you're right. It is a two-way street, mentoring, right? But one of the things that you can learn as a mentor is how to increase the likelihood that you can come across a two-way street, right? It might start as a one-way. And how can you communicate and how can you get through to a mentee and get them to be on board and understand and want to and apply themselves and that type of thing. And so, yes, maybe it wasn't there from their perspective of taking it in when I was there, but did I do enough to figure out a way to get it into them? So, that type of learning has definitely occurred for me and, will continue to.
As a mentor, how do you keep from not getting frustrated? Because mentors mean well, but there are times where mentees may not necessarily take in the entire message, may not want to learn. It goes back to that thought that we had a couple of minutes ago about where, wanting to listen.
Mm-hmm.
How do mentors, and it could be you and Greg or other mentors around you that are a part of your circle, how do mentors keep from being frustrated when they're trying to do things that can only benefit those that they're trying to interact with?
Yeah, it's a good question as well. And I think there are, of course, frustrating moments. But you lean back on the fact of why you're doing it and the successes that you have had and the kids that are engaged and are learning and you are helping, to know that, it's not you so much and it's not the message. It's just maybe it's not the right time yet. And I'm not perfect either. I'm still trying to figure out sometimes like how much to push, when to leave it and let them figure things out and come to me. Those types of things, it's just like on the field with those fine lines and figuring out, where to push and where to wait and how much to do. Because, as much as, the frustration for the mentor can be annoying and, difficult to overcome, the frustration on the other side can be even worse if it's just nonstop and relentless from a mentor that's not being well received. So, I don't want that to occur either.
When it comes to the message finally getting through, and once again, this can be from personal experience with you and Greg with Beyond Goals. It could be with other folks that who are mentors. When you finally break through, after all of the talk and those moments of frustrations and things where you don't think the message is getting through, you hope it is on some level, you're not sure that it is. When it finally pushes through, what has it been like as a mentor and for those around you that are mentors to finally see the help pushing through and having that mentee understand the message? What's that like to see that light come on?
Yeah, very satisfying. It's funny, we talk to mentees about confidence and how to overcome it and how to deal with it and things like that. But, we deal with confidence too, right? Am I sending the right message? Is it getting through? What can I be doing differently, right? All those things. And so when it finally starts to click and you start to see some progress, it gives you the confidence that, okay, what you're doing is right. What you're speaking about is right. The messaging, sometimes it just takes a little bit more time, more perseverance, depending on the athletes or the situation. So for us, it's really gratifying because that's why we're doing it. And, we're happy that we're, making a difference and can see that and, hoping that it can make a difference for that that child on and off the field.
Have your approaches in mentoring and those around you, like I said, could be you, could be Greg, could be Beyond Goals on the Whole, could be other mentors in general. Has your approach changed? Have your ideas of approach changed? Have your ideas of attack, if you want to put it into soccer parlance, have they changed when it comes to mentoring? And how much, if it has? Because I imagine you come into it and you're sitting there saying, okay, it's like a game plan. You come into every individual game with a game plan, and then once ball is kicked, you have to adjust your tactics.
Definitely.
How much tactical adjustment have you made, I guess, as a mentor, and those around you that you've seen as mentors? How much tactical adjustments have you had to make in your mentoring version of Michael Parkhurst?
A lot, and we're always mixing it up and changing it, and that's where, through the individual sessions, we never go in with like a, hey, this is exactly how this session is going to go in this session and this session and this session. It's like, we've got, okay, if we're struggling for, and it depends on the individual and how outgoing they are, right, and what they're going through and stuff. We've got certain things that we will touch on and life experiences and whatnot. But anytime I have that stuff written down, it's like, the conversation just goes totally somewhere else. And, maybe at some point we'll get to that stuff or another meeting or anything. But that's where the individual is nice, because we can kind of just go wherever it takes us, the conversation. I think that the biggest difference for us has been, at the team level, we originally, I guess it's individual sort of, but we originally thought we would work with high level athletes only, right? Only the kids that wanted to get to college, play professional, right? Help them get over the hump. But I think that the more we spoke with kids, the more outreach we did, the more we realized our messaging relates to any kid going through life, trying to get better at anything that they do, and trying to have success. And that's, I think, also what we realized post soccer, right? Things that made us successful on the field make us successful off the field. And now I get why companies look to have former athletes as part of their workforce, because there's certain things that athletes and young kids learn through team sports and through winning and losing and dealing with adversity and those types of things that lead to success down the road, no matter what they do for a profession. So I think that we've realized that we can speak to every kid and have an impact, not just a high level athlete.
I was going to say, what's it like having that kind of universality where you kind of get the vibe that, yeah, we are doing something, we're on a right path here with higher end athletes, but at the same time, we can have messages for those who are learning and those who are just starting out. What's it like to have that kind of universality as a mentor?
Yeah, it's nice. It broadens our reach, and we're just trying to have the biggest impact that we can. Soccer was really good to Greg and I, and we're just trying to use it to give back and give back some of our knowledge that we learned. And that's why it's allowed us to open up a nonprofit section of Beyond Goals that we can use then to go out and impact kids and schools and teams that would not be able to normally use our services. And we're only able to do that because the messaging has changed a little bit, where we realize like we can develop leaders of tomorrow within our community, based off of our experiencing our message and, what led to us to have success.
Let's talk about that nonprofit angle for just a little bit, since you've opened that door. Let's go down that particular channel this morning. When that idea kind of popped up, it's like, hey, we have this other way of being able to impact. It's another one of those doors that you sit there and it's like, okay, this is now being presented to us, and we really can make a difference to an entirely different aspect of folks. And I would posit that, once again, those individuals, I think, they value it just as much, if not more, the fact that you and Greg and Beyond Goals can reach out and have this nonprofit angle, because it, once again, you mentioned, it broadens your reach. And I think at the same time, it can open a door for someone who thought that mentoring wasn't available to them, and now they have this opportunity for them. What's it been like to have the nonprofit continue the way that it has?
Yeah, it's been great, and we're honestly just getting everything going right now. I don't think we've got $1 yet in our nonprofit bucket, but the work that we've done with Soccer in the Streets, and Greg does a ton of local outreach there in the Atlanta area with schools, and some of the schools that we've spoken to in clubs, and you realize. How fortunate we've had it and how fortunate our kids have it. And, you want to make sure that what I said earlier is we're broadening our reach of just being able to make sure that, we try and be a mentor to as many kids as possible, be a positive influence. And we know that we're in a special place to do that because of being former athletes. And in today's society, professional athletes are on a pedestal, and so many kids want to be a professional athlete, which is awesome, and have that dream. And because of that, we've got the ability to connect with some of these kids that that other adults and other people can't have that type of impact. And we understand that, so that's why we're trying to use our knowledge and our platform for as best a result as possible.
Look 5 years down the line for me. It's a crystal ball question. Say 5-10 years down the line. How would you like to continue to see Beyond Goals grow and evolve into those next stages of mentoring? That I know that once again, we talk game plans and everything. And once the ball is kicked, you have to change your tactics. But when the ball was kicked at Beyond Goals, I'm fairly certain that you and Greg had a game plan put together. Now that the ball has been kicked and you are early on in the first half, you're seeing things grow and evolve. As you get to the interval and you get toward the second half and you're working minute 46 and beyond, how would you like to continue to see Beyond Goals grow and evolve through everything that you've been able to do so far?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, I think Greg and I are taking it baby step at a time and seeing where it goes and organically how things unfold. But, I think big picture, we're not sure yet. We think that it could be as big as we want it to be. We could involve other former athletes. We want to get some and even current athletes, maybe women involved as well, women soccer players or women athletes, because we know, just like I said about professional athletes, right? Women athletes have a better ability to connect, especially with young girls than we do. And we want to have that representation at some point. So I'm not sure. If we ever take it beyond locally in Atlanta and expand it and bring other former athletes and maybe have mentor training so that they can reach kids in their areas, or if we're going to work with all these MLS academies, MLS Next teams, USL academies, who knows? There's a lot of different ways and options we could go with it in the future. But we just want to see what it does in the local level and see what kind of impact and what difference it can make. So that's what we're doing and focused on now.
Okay, before we go, I do want to talk about Atlanta United and what happened in Columbus and questions evolving from there. But I do have a question from one of our watchers in the Twitch pitch, and he's watching from Australia. He's one of our faithful watchers, and he's from Australia. So right now he's pushing midnight on a Friday, asks you this question. And he's a fan of LAFC, so try not to hold that against him in the present tense. He says, question for Michael. Do a lot of kids miss playing due to the high price clubs charge to play? I know it's a problem here in Australia for some kids. They can't go to certain clubs due to parents not being able to afford it due to charging over $2,000 a season. So from your experience, do a lot of kids miss playing because of the high price of the charge to play?
Yeah, I mean, pay to play is a problem here in the U.S. It certainly is. And, each club now has, I think, money from U.S. Soccer to try and scholarship some players. So there are opportunities out there. But that said, it's some of these families can't even get their kids to the practice, especially if it's a little bit of a distance. So surely there's definitely kids that are missing out on soccer, or missing out on the level that they could be playing at versus just playing at their local YMCA, or after school program or something like that. It's definitely a huge problem here, because similarly the prices are extraordinary. It can easily run a few $1,000s a year, even at the U8, U9 level, if they're playing multiple tournaments a year or traveling for tournaments. So yeah, it's something. Youth sports has become such a massive money maker here in the US, and so yeah, it's a challenge.
Okay, so all right, let's finish up with Atlanta United. DC's coming into town this weekend. DC's been giving up a lot of goals, so it could be a chance for United, obviously, to draw closer to the playoff bar, but then they have to go to Chester in the midweek, so it's a tall order coming up, but you got to take care of your own business first and foremost. Just focus on that. Did you get out your canoe and your paddle and work your way to lower.com to catch the match?
Sure did.
What'd you think?
I thought the first half was fantastic. I thought they were so good. On the front foot, dominating. Thankful that we got at least one. Could have had more. So that was really good. And I think even the second half, you expect a little bit of a letdown, just because the first half was so good and Columbus was so bad. But I thought even the second half was pretty good. Cucho is Joseph of 2017, 2018, where it's like, you give this guy half a chance and it's in the back of the net. And so, that's unfortunate. But, he did a good job of making sure that he got out of there with at least a point, because to lose that game after playing that well in the first half, and even, decently overall for the entire game, that would have been a killer. So, confidence from parts of it for sure, but I'm sure guys were disappointed that didn't get the win.
How frustrating is the inconsistency of officiating as an athlete?
Highly. You just feel like some things are called one game and then they're not called the next, and VAR intrudes sometimes and then not other times. And you just wonder, like, are these guys communicating? Do they watch things all together as a group? Like, are they learning from things? Because, it's tough for guys to know, like, how should they play? What can they get away with? What's the boundary if it's just so inconsistent? And, I did not see anything on the taken away goal from Sosa. I was shocked on that call. But so, yeah, it's very frustrating. Like, if it's always going to be called, like, okay, then guys know, right? But it's the inconsistency that really gets to coaches and players.
Especially when you're going half to half, and not just game to game, but it's half to half. And it could also be sometimes pinned from a center ref to center ref. The guy could be working it one way in the first half, and then he overcorrects. And I think that there's a danger sometimes in a center ref who overcorrects. And this is just speaking in general terms, but You have those center refs that overcorrect. It's like they'll call it one way or they won't call things. And then later on, could be 20 minutes later in the same half. It could be in the second half. Then they overcorrect and call things too tightly. And it goes to your notion of, okay, where's the line? The line was here. Now it's not. You get a foul late and you get a card out of it when it doesn't match the tenor of the match. And it's disappointing when you have center refs who can't quite control the volume knob on the stereo system and figure out what they want to do.
Yeah, definitely. And that's, the game management and the flow of it. And, we just wish referees would understand that a little bit more. Like, if you're going to let it go, and there's certain referees that, let things go a little bit more, then let it go. But if you're going to call a tight game, call a tight game. Just try and keep it as consistent as possible. Yeah, the half to half, or, little things to little things, or more, why is there more yellow cards in the second half of the same foul that's in the first half? Like little things like that, where it's just like, they could help themselves a little bit more, and just help us, and then help the flow of the game. When you're watching on TV, the stop and the go and the arguing and all this, it'd be less of it if it was just a little bit more consistent across the board.
All right, what's going on with the Beyond Goals? What do folks need to know, and where can they catch what is going on with at BG Mentoring on the Twitters? What's the latest?
I think we still got 1 week left in the sale that we're back to season, back to school sale that we had going on. So that's on the website. I'm getting down there in October, doing soccer in the streets events, doing a boys and girls club event, meeting with Atlanta United Academy. So trying to get all that done in a trip there in October. So, calendar's filling up for the fall, which is great.
Yes, we like a full calendar, especially when it means that you get to drop down here and get to catch up with folks at MF Parkhurst on the Twitters, at BG Mentoring on the Twitters, beyondgoalsmentoring.com. Cap, thanks for coming in and coming in out of the bullpen this morning and hanging out with me for a half hour. It's always fun for me to have these conversations with you about mentoring and what it's like to be a mentor and how folks can receive the information and receive everything, all the vibes that are coming out from you and Greg and everybody at Beyond Goals. Thanks for hanging out with me for another week. We'll catch up soon.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.